Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential freedom through land investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Hey everyone, this is episode 133 of the Real Estate Investing Podcast, discussing how to get your first land deal. I'm your host, Dan Rapke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron. Before we get into the show, let's go over from a question from one of our featured Discord members. Today's question is from Tyler. Tyler asked, do you prefer land in city limits or outside of city limits? Which is easier to sell on the back end? Really good question.
Yeah, I like this question a lot. It's a little more advanced than a lot of our opening questions, but this is something that came up in our weekly webinar yesterday. It wasn't a direct question, but we were talking about city limits quite a bit yesterday in our webinar. Yeah. So I wanted to bring this up from Tyler. He asked this question. So I like it personally outside of city limits. It depends. What's going to happen in city limits is you're going to have much more restrictions on the zoning, on what you can do with the land. What we prefer to do is buying, if it is an infill lot, 2 acres, whatever it is, I prefer it having less restrictions where you can put mobile homes, you can build if you want to build, you can have some animals on it if you want to have animals on it, whatever it is. City limits, they're going to crack down on that stuff a lot more. I'm not saying we aren't doing it at all in city limits, but the bigger the city, the more populated city, the more money the city has, I think that's when in city limits helps a little more. But if you're in like rural America and you end up in city limits of some small little town, it's going to be more difficult to sell.
Yeah, if you're in like a town like, let's just throw Macon, Alabama out there. Maybe it's not as fast. I don't know anything about Macon, so don't fact check me on this. But say there's a big demand for mobile homes. There's a big demand for low regulations. It's a lower income area. There's not a lot of demand to move to the city. People aren't saying, oh, let's move to the city in Macon, Alabama. And I don't know if that's true or not, but in an area like that, especially, is where those restrictions matter more and more. Versus if you're in an area like Austin, Texas, obviously people want infill lots in Austin, Texas, if they can build and so on. So really, really good question. Overall, the way we do things, we prefer outside of city limits with less restrictions. It sells very fast. There's such a large amount of people out there who want to just put a mobile home on their land or recreational land or whatever. I guess if we're talking infill lots, drop a mobile on it very easily with low restrictions, low government getting in the way. Other than that, guys, let's get into the show. Today's topic, how to get your first land deal. So I think first, Ron, the way we need to start this is let's discuss the different levels of acquisitions, but getting your first deal, you need to find out how you're going to acquire. So whether you're texting or cold calling or mailing, that's the first thing you kind of need to develop is how you're going. What's your plan of acquisition attack?
Yeah, I like that a lot. And we chose this episode. There's the majority of you are just first hearing about this, first getting into this. So we're going to take this back a little bit. I think there'll be value for people who are doing 10 deals a month still with this episode. But going from 0 to 1 deals, that's a big step. Like going from 0 to 1 is easier than going from 1 to 10, I think. Just like people say building a $1 million business is more difficult than going from 1 million to 10. But going on the acquisition strategy, like we said, mail is what we do. Mail is the most efficient from a money standpoint, the money you put in versus the money you get out. I think mail is the most scalable because you do not need as many people. You get extremely qualified leads calling you back. You have prices the way we're doing it. So that's what we prefer. But that being said, there's also a lot of value in SMS, texting's growing. Cold calling is a big acquisition method for forever, and that's a cheap one. So there definitely are different things. You got to choose the avenue. So I think kind of talking about that, Dan, to start, like what's your financial situation, I think is kind of what avenue you're going to choose.
Yeah, exactly.
Time situation too.
Yeah, it comes down to your time and your money. And if you have money and you have time, let's leverage both of those and send mail. It's going to be more efficient. You're going to get a better return on investment. If you don't have a lot of money, but you have time, then you got to look at methods like texting or cold calling. Texting is not free though. Texting still, skip tracing is anywhere we've seen from 8 cents to 15 cents around, right?
Yep.
So you still got to skip trace. You still got to pull your data. And then as texting service, there's a lot of them out there, but they either charge monthly or by text. And that depends which plan you go with, but none of them are free. Let's just throw it out there. You're going to need to spend a little bit of money. Some are much more affordable. Mail is about 62 cents right now, Ron, per record, roughly. And texting between the skip tracing and all the other things that go, you're probably looking at, around low 20s or 25 cents.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And Yeah, if you have money, period, like whether you have time or not, if you have money, send mail. Like it is where you're going to turn your money into more money the fastest. You're going to make the most money. It's going to take the least amount of time, in my opinion.
Scalable.
Yeah, exactly, without a doubt. If you have money, you have $5, $7, $10,000. Look in or do mailing if you're getting into this business to get to that first deal. I think you're going to learn a ton as well in that, and it's a huge value. Like learning this first, and then like, okay, I can fit in texting in this part and cold calling in this part of my business, but mail being the bulk is very important for that if you have money. While you don't, if you don't have money, like Daniel said, these other aspects are going to be more time intensive. I would say SMS, you're going to have to vet a ton of leads. You're going to get a ton of angry people back. Obviously, cold calling takes a ton of time. But that being said, there's less input in terms of financial input.
Yeah, and with texting, you're looking at a 20% response rate, and then your job's to get them on the phone typically. So you're texting them, you're kind of vetting the lead, and then you need to get them on the phone. You can have virtual assistants do that, but you got to manage virtual assistants, and it's just more operationally heavy than just sending out a mail. And I was listening to someone talk the other day on this topic, actually, Ron, and they were saying that they're getting one deal per every 7,500 mailers, or not mailers, 7,500 text. And if we're going by that 20% ratio, around 20% of those people are responding. What's 25? What's 20% of
1,500?
So if you're getting 1,500 responses, you got to vet those, and you're getting one deal from those 1,500. It's a lot of operations, a lot of work. That being said, not everyone can afford mail at first, and it works. Like texting will work, cold calling will work if you execute properly and execute right. But at the end of the day, it's much, much less efficient. It's heavier on time. It's still not free, and it's just mail so scalable.
Like, do you think per deal, if that's taking that much, like if you add in time, without a doubt, mail is going to be cheaper per deal to get a deal. But like, how much money goes into 7,500 texts, 1,500 responses? Like, there is a lot of not just time put into that, because the time is going to be absurd compared to getting one deal via mail. But the money, the money cost for a text more than me. Is it per text, or is it like some programs are like you have to buy a number or something like that? Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, a lot of them are just monthly subscriptions, and it's like 500 for the base package for 10,000 mailers. Things like that is what I've seen. Some do charge by text as well, but they get you in a subscription 500 and you get 10,000 text.
Yep.
For 500 a month. So it's not very expensive. It's more the time than anything for
1,500 leads is that's the first time I've heard that number in terms of
the response. Those aren't leads. So that's response. So then what you do is take that 1,500 and then vet them even more and try to find out who's actually interested in selling their land, Ron. And then once you vet them enough, then get on the phone with them. And that's how that kind of works.
Interesting. Yeah, we've done a lot of texting, follow up, that stuff. We haven't done all that much. And you guys can see, we've done a decent amount of it. Daniel's been kind of the lead on the texting for the cold texting stuff. But like he said, it's a ton of manpower. There's a ton of operations that go into it. You don't want to just go into it blind, for sure.
No, it's a lot. It is a lot. And it's, you can have systems and stuff in place, but it's just like, comes back to that $6.50 we get per mailer. We come out around. I keep that 10X number in my head. Yep. Yeah. You're 10xing, that's profit. So we're getting $6 back per every mailer we send out of profit. And that's just like, those numbers don't leave my mind when I'm putting all this work and energy into these other systems that aren't scaling well with our business.
Yep. That's why we have 90%, 95% of our effort going towards mail, getting more mail out, opposed to sending those next 2,000 texts.
Yeah. Well, quick break, guys. If you guys are getting value from this, please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. It really helps us grow and push our mission forward. We try to keep this as ad-free as possible, so we really appreciate liking and subscribing our channel. Thanks, guys. All right, Ron, next I want to get into pricing your data set. So now we know how we're going to acquire. We're going to either mail, text, maybe a combination of the both, cold call. We know what we're doing. We're attacking it. The topic is getting your first land deal, so let's keep it on that. But now we got to talk about how to get your first land deal. So we know how we're going to execute it. Now we got to talk about pricing your data set. I still don't like blind calls to gauge interest. I think every record should still be priced personally. Mm-hmm. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about that in, the wholesaling, housing, land, any industry really. But I think like the upfront work to price is still very valuable.
Yeah, like if I can have for an area, if I think about it from a scalability standpoint again, like if I know what I want to pay or about what I want to pay for 5 acres in X county, and I get someone who's interested, who's showing some motivation, shooting them that number is going to weed out a ton of people that weren't interested anywhere close to your price. You're the ones that are close to your price and you can make it work. Let's say 5 acres, you're saying you want to buy it for $40,000. Maybe it's worth 80, 90, $100,000. And you have someone like you shoot them that number once they show some interest in selling. And then they're either going to be like, you're crazy. I want 120,000. Like, okay, that's a dead lead. They want too much money. Or they're going to say, that's close to what I'm looking for, but X, I want whatever, $47,000. Then you have that in, from a scalability standpoint, you can grind out some deals if you don't have it priced at first, but it is not going to be like there's going to be so much work evaluating land, evaluating the price of land for sellers who never had interest in selling anywhere close to your price.
Yeah, and if you come from a wholesaling background, you might know how to do this better is understanding how to gauge someone's interest with them knowing that they're going to get an under market value offer because there is value there. And I know some wholesalers are really, really good at gauging their interest. They know they're getting a lower offer than if they put this on the market, lower the market value, and trying to gauge that interest and really showing our value. So if you're good at that, you can do it that. But at some point, you're going to need to comp the land. By pricing it early, instead of comping the land, you know what you're. So say you have 5 acres for $50,000. Maybe in the text or on the call, you say in that area we're offering anywhere from 30 to 60,000. You know, and kind of gauge their interest. Maybe they'll say, okay, maybe we can work something out, or maybe they'll say that's definitely not going to work out. I want 120 grand. So having that price there, but keep that price kind of flexible when on the phone because you might be able to get them lower, you might be able to get them higher. But that's kind of like a starting range. What I would do, Ron.
Yeah, the what we're trying to do is like help you guys get from 0 to 1 deal as fast as possible, and it's going to take some time to learn how to price. It might take an education, whatever it is, to learn how to truly price and understand that. But it is going to save you so much time, and you're going to get to that first deal faster if you learn how to price. You don't have to be excellent at it by any means, but if you know, like I can buy 5 acres for $40,000, and you know that when you get those responses back. Every 5 acres that comes back to you, like you know where you need to be or close to where you need to be. And then once you gauge the motivation, then you can start getting and look in the land and have a negotiation process. But like Daniel said, 1,500 responses, let's say 500 of those are like, yeah, I'm interested. And then it comes down to price. It's not scalable with texting. It's not scalable with any of these if you don't have it priced up front.
Right. And so I guess, Ron, stay on topic here. We got to price the data set no matter what is kind of what we're trying to say. We prefer mail. That's what we advise. That's what we really teach and preach. If you need these other methods because your financial situation, they do work. They're just less efficient and effective. So after actually pricing, and there's a ton that goes into pricing, go back and listen to our old videos. Or if you're in our program, we do webinars and stuff like that. Pricing modules in the course, things like that, all over the place, Ron. So there's plenty of resources to learn where to price. That's a whole nother topic. We're not going to dive too deep into that. Just know you got to find a way to price your land from 40 to 50% or 35 to 50%. Next round, we want to talk about actually sending it. So the next step, right? We priced it and now we actually need to send the mail, send your text, start cold calling. We actually got to execute. It's time to execute.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the part where we talk about it a lot with paralysis analysis, paralysis.
One of the two.
Yeah. Where you're like paralyzed, you're over looking at your pricing, whatever it is. And you just got to hit that button, whether it's sending the mail, like hit the mail button to send it, start dialing the phone. If you're cold calling, hit that send button, which shoots out 2,000 texts, whatever it is. And that's kind of the basis of it. This is like the take action part. Like you did all the upfront work and now it's like, okay, now this is real. Like this is happening. I'm contacting 2,000 people about purchasing their land. And you just got to make it happen, Dan. Like you got to take some action. You got to believe in the process. I think you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn way more sending text or calls that maybe have an error in them or mail that might have an error in it. You're going to learn way more from that than overanalyzing what you already did. Yeah,
I completely agree. And you don't want to overanalyze like Ron's saying, but you also want to make sure to educate yourself if you spend, especially if you're sending mail because it's expensive. You're going to learn as you do it, obviously. but like we educate a lot on that, and you can go into our YouTube videos for free and try to figure out how we're pricing Ron and how
Yep.
we're pulling our data sets and everything like that. We have a data tree video as well. You
Yep.
can go way back and do it, or if you buy the program, you get very good access to all that stuff, Ron. But education is what I'm trying to say. Education is very important, especially for sending your mail. I do not want someone sending mail thinking they're pricing it at 35, 40%, but they just think the retail value is $100,000, but really it's $50,000. So they're pricing extremely high or extremely low. That's the hardest thing to do. It sounds a lot easier pricing than it actually is.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. It's not like that is the part you need to, if you're, I mean, I guess especially if you're sending mail, like Daniel said, you need to make sure you understand what you're doing in pricing and not just throw out offers. If you're doing text, like your initial contact with a text or a call is generally going to be a gauging thing, while the initial contact with a mailer is like shooting them a number. So you can lose a lot of people if you have that number and you're at 10% of market value instead of 40% of market value, where texting, cold calling, you're going to be gauging their interest first. Like, okay, what's their motivation? Then we can start talking numbers a little bit. Obviously, your numbers still need to make sense, but that initial contact probably isn't as important to have that absolutely perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And with text, like follow-ups and things like that are much, much more important than mail, where you're going to, you might only get a 1 or 2% response rate, but they're very interested. And then you acquire maybe 0.5% of the ones, or 0.25 or whatever the math comes out to, Ron. But yeah, you got to keep that in mind too. Like follow-ups for cold calling, follow-ups for text are even more crucial, because mailing, they get it, they put it, they'll call you. And then yes, it's important to follow up and stuff, but majority of the people, you're not going to see a 20% response rate.
Yep.
So texting is much more important to take that 20% and have a follow-up system. Next step, Ron, we're actually get to acquiring. So obtain the purchase agreement. We work off purchase agreements, right? So our mail has a purchase agreement in it. If we didn't explain that already, it's a 2-page letter with a purchase agreement in it with actual, it's a purchase agreement to buy their land with their parcel number and all the different information. We use that to send the title companies. But if they're not ready to sell, they want more information, you got to negotiate. So we obtain the PA or we negotiate, kind of the next step in the process, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, let's close the deal. Let's make it happen. Getting the purchase agreement is, you don't want to do too much work. And we say this a lot in terms of evaluating land, like gauging, I keep on saying it, but gauging their interest and understanding their interest is more important than like, and getting to, and having a conversation with them, I think is the most important thing in getting purchase agreements. Opposed to kind of looking at the land, talking to them about everything, trying to do all your due diligence. There's always ways, if you get a purchase agreement, to get out of the deal. You are not stuck in the deal at that price or at any price. You're not stuck in the deal with a purchase agreement. So yeah, once you get those texts back, those calls back, like try to get them under contract. You don't want them just under contract at any number, but there is a sense of like obligation, or like I'm in this, I'm bought into this from a seller's perspective when they do have a contract signed.
Yeah.
Obviously you have in the contract and everything like that, like we have a due diligence period. We got to confirm everything with the land, and that's what it says. So you have ways to get out of the contract. Just be honest up front, I think, but get those purchase agreements. It's so important.
Absolutely. And it is important to note here, Ron, about 50% of our mail that we send out, we end up getting the purchase agreement at that price.
Yep.
Right. So about 50% of what we send out, there is no negotiation. They're either asking for more money, or we say no and we stick to our number, or they just send it in and text it or email it over to us. And that's one of the powerful things about mail. They have an offer on their refrigerator. They have an offer on their coffee table. They sign it, send a picture back, email it to us, fax it, whatever their method is. We put that all in there, and there is no negotiation. We got some of our best properties ever from never even speaking to them, which is just crazy. And it just shows the power and efficiency of it. Think of your operations there. You send them mail and then you get purchase agreements back without doing any legwork.
Yeah. You remember those moments, honestly, when you like, I look at my email or my text for our business, and you'll see like a $70,000 purchase agreement mailed back. And like, you mailed the county well, you priced it well. It's a good area to mail. If it's good land, like this is going to be a great deal. And you just think like, there's no way this person sent me a $70,000 offer back just over text, and it's good land. Then you look at it, you're like, wow, this is going to sell for $210. And those are like the numbers. And we've gotten those deals back over text, $70,000. Someone is, so you call them back, you let them know the process, and you get it rolling like in those situations. And it happens. Doesn't happen every day, sometimes not every week, but most weeks we are getting a purchase agreement back for $20,000 plus, where we never had a conversation with the person, and it's good land.
Yeah, exactly. So going over the steps, the first thing you have to do is really figure out your acquisition method, do research, educate yourself on mailing, texting, emailing, cold calling, whatever you decide to do. We preach mail. We also preach a little bit SMS and texting. We believe in it's just a little more upfront work. Number 2, price your data set. I really strongly suggest pricing your data set before just executing so you have a number to come back on. So get really, really good at pricing. Number 3, send your mail, start cold calling, start texting, actually executing. And then 4, start negotiating. You're going to get leads in. Like you're putting offers and feelers out there. People are going to be responding. So negotiate, follow up, do the acquisition things.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have much more to add. And like, this isn't a 6-month process, guys, to go from 0 to 1 deals. It's a 30-day process, a 14-day, like 20. If you're texting and stuff, like you could get a deal back by the end of next week.
Yeah. And the mail actually takes time because you send it out and it's USPS. So it's going to take a week or two to hit a lot of times for the people actually to get their mail around. But texting is pretty instant. I mean, our mailing program is get your first deal in 28 days.
Yep.
And most people who do it and start from day one get a deal within 28 days. But texting, it could be get a deal in 10 days or something.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, this isn't like, you got to take action though. That's the most important thing. Like to get to that first deal, that is a really hard spot to get to. Like 0 to 1, like I said at the beginning, is very difficult, but it's not really difficult from, it's just difficult from like taking action, believing it, and then getting that purchase agreement, that deal, whatever it is.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. It really helps grow and push our mission. Other than that, guys, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next episode.